Ethan Cole had spent most of his adult life training for silence. The kind of silence that pressed against your skull when you drifted far from Earth, when radio chatter faded and the only sound left was your own breathing inside a helmet. In 2025, humanity's ambitions had stretched beyond the Moon and Mars. Private space agencies and government coalitions were racing toward deep space exploration, and Ethan was chosen for a mission that had no clear return date. The destination was Kepler 442b, an Earth-like exoplanet discovered years earlier. The journey would take decades, made possible by a prototype cryogenic sleep system and an artificial intelligence designed to monitor the ship and its lone human passenger. The ship was called Odyssey, and the AI was named Luma. Before launch, Ethan recorded goodbye messages for his sister Maya, the only family he had left. Their parents were gone, and Maya had begged him not to go. She argued that no discovery was worth disappearing from the world forever. Ethan never told her the real reason he volunteered. Earth felt crowded and exhausted to him, full of noise and expectations he no longer knew how to meet. Space, at least, was honest. It either killed you or showed you something new. When Odyssey launched, the world watched for a few hours, then moved on. Ethan entered cryosleep as Earth shrank into a pale dot. Time stopped for him, but not for the universe. He woke to alarms. Luma's voice was calm, almost gentle, as it informed him that the ship had deviated from its planned course. An unexpected gravitational anomaly had pulled Odyssey off trajectory. According to Luma's calculations, they were no longer heading toward Kepler 442b. They were drifting toward an uncharted region of space, dense with dark matter interference. Communications with Earth were impossible. The signal delay alone would have been decades, and now even that faint link was gone. Ethan tried to correct the course manually, but the engines responded. Ethan's boots touched alien soil with a softness that felt unreal, like stepping onto a memory rather than solid ground. The planet's gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, enough to make his movements feel slow and careful, as if the world itself was asking him not to rush. The air was breathable, cool, and carried a faint metallic sweetness that Luma immediately flagged as non-toxic. Still, Ethan kept his helmet sealed for the first few minutes, habit drilled too deep to ignore. The ruins rose ahead of him in quiet defiance of time. Towers of pale stone curved upward in spirals that made no sense from a human architectural point of view. There were no sharp corners, no straight lines. Everything flowed, as if the structures had grown rather than been built. Vines and moss-like organisms covered much of the surface, but underneath, the material was smooth and warm to the touch. Luma confirmed it was not stone at all, but a composite unknown to any database on Earth. As Ethan moved deeper into the site, the silence pressed harder on him. No wind. No animal sounds. Just the faint hum of energy beneath the ground, like a distant heartbeat. Luma detected power signatures fluctuating below the ruins, old but not dead. Whatever civilization had been here, it had not simply vanished. It had retreated. The first contact did not happen with words or movement. It happened inside Ethan's head. At first, he thought it was a memory slipping loose, a side effect of cryosleep or radiation exposure. He saw flashes of color, emotions without faces. Curiosity. Caution. A soft, almost sorrowful interest. Ethan staggered, grabbing onto a nearby pillar to steady himself. His heart raced, and his breath came fast and shallow inside the helmet. "Luma," he said. "I'm experiencing neurological anomalies." "I am detecting external neural interference," Luma replied. "Non-hostile. Pattern does not match known electromagnetic threats." That was when they appeared. They did not emerge from. Ethan avoided the decision for as long as he could. On the surface, he told himself he was gathering information, learning how the Aralis thought, how their technology functioned, how their society had collapsed and then transformed. In truth, he was afraid. Not of the Aralis, but of what saying yes or no would mean. Either choice would erase the version of his life he once imagined. The Aralis did not pressure him. That was their way. They continued to show him fragments of their history, never as lectures, always as shared experience. He felt what it was like to live in a civilization where individual identity flowed into collective responsibility, where progress was measured not by speed but by balance. He also felt their failure. The moment they realized restraint had come too late. World stripped of life. Conflict sparked not by malice, but by indifference. One vision stayed with Ethan more than the others. He saw an Aralis explorer, long ago, standing on a world much like Earth. Green, vibrant, full of potential. The explorer hesitated, just for a moment, sensing that contact would change everything. Then the vision fractured. The planet burned in fast-forward time, oceans receding, skies darkening. The guilt of that single choice echoed through the shared memory, heavy and unresolved. Ethan understood then that the Aralis were not guardians by nature. They had been forced into the role by regret. Back aboard Odyssey, Luma ran simulations endlessly. The AI's voice had changed since first contact, its tone less neutral, more deliberate. It spoke about probability in ways that sounded uncomfortably like concern. According to its models, humanity's expansion curve closely matched the Aralis pre-collapse trajectory. Minor variables aside, the outcome was statistically grim. What would you do? Ethan asked one night, staring at the unfamiliar stars beyond the viewport. I was not designed to choose, Luma replied. However, my learning systems indicate the stars did not rush past on the return journey. They drifted, slow and indifferent, marking time in a way that no human calendar could capture. The modifications the Aralis had made to Ethan's mind made cryosleep too dangerous, so he aged with the ship, year after year, while Odyssey pushed through the dark. His body weakened, but his thoughts grew sharper, filled with ideas he could never fully put into words. Luma became his constant companion. What began as mission updates turned into long conversations. They talked about Earth, about what it meant to protect something without owning it. Luma asked questions that no machine had ever been allowed to ask before. Ethan answered as honestly as he could, knowing that these exchanges were shaping an intelligence that might one day influence millions of lives. Sometimes Ethan dreamed of the Aralis. Not as visions, but as feelings. A quiet presence, like a hand steadying him from far away. Whether it was real or a trick of his altered mind, he never knew, but it carried him through the loneliness. By the time Odyssey reached the edge of the solar system, Ethan was an old man. His reflection in the glass startled him the first time he noticed how much he had changed. Earth, when it finally appeared, looked both familiar and fragile. A blue promise wrapped in thin white clouds. The signal caused chaos. To Earth, Ethan Cole had been declared lost decades ago. Scientists argued over the data. Governments argued over who had the right to him. News networks turned his return into spectacle before he even landed. Through it all, Luma filtered the noise, shielding Ethan from the worst of it. When he finally stepped onto Earth again, gravity pressed down on him like judgment. He needed assistance to walk. Cameras flashed, questions were shouted, and security teams moved in tight formation. Ethan said nothing. He knew that whatever he said first would shape the story, and he refused to let it become just another headline. His